I was a pretty good student in school, the kind of kid that teachers loved. I was well behaved, I got good grades, and I didn't screw around too much. But truth be told, I really hated almost every moment of high school, because school didn't teach me to be smarter. It really taught me to pretend to care about things that didn't matter. Like the grades on your test, as though they defined your personality, your human value. And there would be these kids in some of my classes who'd be like, man, what did you get on your test? And you might say, like, I don't know, I got like a 78. It's like, man, I only got a 93, and some kind of stupid humble brag. But really, what they're trying to do is bolster their sense of self and feel better about their being through their grades. And I knew it was superficial. And so a lot of the good students in school I didn't really relate to, because I got good grades since my dad was like looming over me. And he was like, you need to get good grades or I'm going to kick your ass, kind of thing. So I'm like, okay, well, I have that pressure behind me. But had my father not been there, I probably wouldn't have been such a good student. And then there were the other kids, like the kids who smoked weed, the art kids who thought that school was a waste of time. I always found them much more interesting, because instead of parroting whatever they were taught in their English class or their history class, the conversations always felt a lot more authentic. And school was this weird paradox where I was told, and I just kind of like trusted my gut, I guess, that I needed to keep climbing up the academic ladder, despite not even coming from an academic family, to be successful. And at the end of the day, I got those good grades and I got into college. But the deeper I got into academia, the more I felt like an alien that didn't belong. Because there's this, I heard that back in like the 19th century, for example, university was basically just a giant nepotistic pool of people who were networking to, further their individual careers, and that people who weren't born inside academia didn't really have any way in. And that was like a new thing in the 20th century with like, what is it, the American dream, or the idea of like social mobility. Social mobility, I'm pretty sure, is a relatively recent phenomenon, and so like that's kind of what I experienced, because I come from a pretty, blue collar family. 2 generations, 3 generations before me, they're farmers, for God's sake. And I think like a good portion of my family still does that. Not me though, because I liked ideas, I liked art. But yeah, there's just it's all about like the image and the numbers and the grades and these superficial metrics that people used to feel better about themselves. And I don't know, it's like, sounding smart is one thing if you're in the context of a debate and you're trying to convince an audience of people and you want folks to think of you as a genius. Fine. I understand, because optics really play into convincing people about what you think. But I didn't really, over the course of my life, I'm like, I don't know, does it really matter? Everyone's going to think of you as someone in everyone's life is going to see you as a moron at some point. And I was like beleaguered by this thought for quite a long period, since I couldn't tell why I was doing well in school. It's just everyone said do well, and the only real benefit from it that I got was I was able to go to Japan, and that was improv. I barely came here with a plan in the first place. But the other people who were smoking weed at my at their houses, not my house, at their parents' houses, their parents' basements, and just living a lackadaisical lifestyle, there was a genuine connection I felt with them, because we were seeing each other for who we were, like our interests, our natural inclinations, the things that we really wanted to discuss. Like me being into music, I found folks who wanted to talk about Green Day's American Idiot, which was really popular when I was in high school, or other people who just enjoyed reading books for fun. I had a friend who was very much into Harry Potter. I mean, I know it's cliche, but talking about things because we wanted to, not because there's some authoritative authoritative figure above us being like, you need to follow this framework, this construction to feel like you fit in. Like, escaping from that was freedom. And those guys back in, early high school, the 15, 16-year-olds who didn't have fathers who were like, you need to get good grades, they were really free. They got it. They were like, yeah, school's bullshit. This is just teaching you obedience. And I understood what they meant, but it took me a lot longer than other people did because of the pressure. But I find that originality comes from said discussions, not parroting what you're told, not relying so much on like peer-reviewed sources for absolutely every opinion that you hold. Because it's the classic trope of don't let school get in the way of your education. And I felt like school was getting in the way of some of the cool discussions that I could have potentially had, because everyone was just, flexing on what books that they had read, or what their ACT score was, what their SAT score was, or what school they had gone to. And like even today, I think of Harvard and Brown University and Princeton. And I'm aware that they are very prestigious schools and that there absolutely are smart people who go there. But then there's also the other side of that coin, where there are also the legacy students who just got there probably because their parents did. Mommy and daddy went to Harvard, and therefore, their kid just easily gets a foot in the door. And I don't know, man. It's just there's always this image with school, this image of doing well, this image of study that just turns me off, man. Because you don't, unless you're a politician, being seen as smart by a large audience of people was never really that important to me. I just wanted to show myself for who I was. The music listening, doodling, doodling, humor loving guy that I am. And that was like unrelated to school. It was like my own, mental point of origin was always here, inside myself, never anywhere else. And while I will admit that we all care somewhat about what other people see us as, I don't think academia was ever that important to me. It was just human connection with people who could see past the superficiality of that mode of being. So I wonder if you guys also relate to this. I'm not an academic. I went to school, but I still don't consider myself an academic. I think to truly be an academic, you have to hold a master's degree anyway, but maybe there's something that I missed. Maybe you guys have a similar experience. I don't know. Let me know. Otherwise, Scrutly Muttley.